When season 2 of Arcane ended, it was kind of a bummer around here for the family because my kids and I absolutely loved watching the full Arcane season 1 and season 2. My youngest daughter in particular absolutely loved Jinx, the Jinx character. So, given that was really close to the holiday season, I thought it'd be a great idea to go ahead and print a copy of Jinx and go ahead and print her, build her, and paint her up for my youngest daughter for a Christmas present. I went ahead and chose a 1/6 scale Jinx model, and I guess the theme of this video would be go slower to go faster. And what I mean by that was I was kind of feeling a time crunch right from the beginning of the project to make sure I had enough time to get it done before Christmas. And I went ahead and took the already pre-supported models, which ended up wasting, or at least taking a lot more time for cleanup here. Going through and going and sanding and removing a lot of different support issues. This particular rocket portion here, actually the supports went right through the tail section there, and it took quite a bit of time to clean those out. I should have just, like I said, slowed down, take the unsupported, and put my own supports in, which I would typically do. But again, I was looking for a time shortcut, took the pre-supported, and like I said, in the long run, I think it just cost me more time. So I'm going through each piece, cleaning it up. This piece here, just trying to get the weird supports that went right through the model. Again, if I had just slowed down and even looked at the pieces on the in the slicer before I went ahead and printed it, I should have caught this. But lesson learned. The kind of the win here is the fact that you get to practice how to rebuild the little pieces of the model when you go ahead and have to gouge out chunks like this. So later on here you'll see that I just used some resin to recreate the round rivet there after I cleaned out the support material. There was other areas in the model that you won't see really well, but also left a lot of support. So like I said, now I'm just using some resin, the same resin I used to print the models, and just going ahead and filling in those areas that the knife took little chunks out. And we're going to go ahead and put some resin on there. I'm just using like those little cotton swabs, and then UV light for a few seconds on each part to give it a cure. And then we went around to the other parts that just, again, had some supports issues, or the supports created issues, and just fixing the areas that those supports messed up. And here, this is more of a normal cleanup. Just go ahead and taking out the little bumps where the supports would be. This is like more of like a normal level of cleanup, making sure everywhere on the skin, in particular, is nice and smooth before we get into our priming and painting. Just doing some dry fits. Also, if you kind of notice throughout the cleanup here, I'm kept rotating between different gloves. The sandpaper and the sanding sponges, and that just tore through a lot of my gloves. So going ahead and gluing the base is really kind of two different bases stacked on top of each other, and gluing the bases together. And then here I'm using Milliput to go ahead and fill the gaps. I could have also used resin here, but the gaps kind of went through all the way through and through, so I figured it'd be a little quicker if I just use Milliput and just squeeze it into the gaps there. The Milliput I was using is a little drier than I'm used to, but we got through it. And here I'm going ahead and using a combination of like a black and a brown contrast paint, kind of mixing them together, going around the edges of the base. I'm only doing the edges here because the other piece go right on top and cover up the middles. There's no sense painting the top portions of the base here. I'm going ahead and, like I said, alternating between black and brown, mixing them together. The thought here is to have a very kind of just a rocky, boring looking base to not take away from the actual model that's going to go on it. And here I'm just spraying some shade there into the cracks, just to give it a little more depth and make the rocks kind of look more rocky. Here I'm using a darker blue, and we're working on that League of Legends logo. So this model is really modeled after the video game character, not so much the Arcane character. Her outfits are different. If you'll notice later on, it's the video game outfit, not the Arcane TV show animated outfit. But anyhow, so there's the League of Legends logo here. I'm painting that in. We start with a darker blue, and then we use a sky blue from Pro Acryl, and we go ahead and just leave a little bit of the the darker blue as we go ahead and paint the lighter blue on top to give it more depth. And then I'm using this white alchemy from scale 75, and the idea is whiten this up because it's going to be gold right on top of this dark browny black wouldn't look that great, so I'm using a white first to lighten it up. And this alchemy paint's got a little shimmer to it, which my thought here was it would just help the gold be a little more shimmery. But go ahead and just adding white to the logo, to the L, and to the rim around the edges here. And then here's our elven gold that I use, and I found this elven gold's a pretty good gold to use in general. I'll be using this later on the Jinx model herself as well. So we're going ahead and just going around and hitting the last part of the space here. So now, this rock is going to be an interesting part of the video here. Prior, all the pieces were primed black, and then with a white zenithal on them. Went ahead and painted the eyes white, and then I used a pencil to mark the center of each eye, and then I'm just freehanding with black here, the actual pupil on each eye. So, like I said, I went ahead and I primed the models and then zenithal highlighted and then put white on the eyes. I did that off camera, but so we're catching up here, putting the eyes on, and unfortunately, this will not be the first time. Well, this is the first time, but not the last time we're going to be painting these eyes, as you'll see here in a little bit. This is the problem right here. So I used this masking fluid and ended up having horrible luck, as you'll see here in a little bit. I went ahead and put a liberal amount on the eyes. So the idea here is use this masking fluid to mask off the eyes while we paint the rest of this rocket. And we fast forward now to after I'd done some painting on the rocket, obviously, and here I am trying, first tried to pull it off, and it was sticking to the eye, sticking to both the pupil and the rest of the eye, and I didn't get it all on video here, but now at this point I'm just trying to clean up the eye enough to get some paint back on it and save the rest of the face of the rocket, and I'm just not having any luck. It's sticking into the corners, and when it comes off it's pulling paint. So you can see here I kind of went on tilt here a little bit and to try to get that off, but so I ended up just remasking the face and going ahead and basically repriming it and putting white back in and kind of just doing a full reset on the eyes. But this kind of shows that when things go wrong, you can always recover. You may have to back up a few steps, but there's always a way to recover from a real bad thing. So this time I used silly putty to mask off the eyes. Obviously it worked way better. So lesson learned, masking fluid. I've always had hit and miss with it, and this was a huge miss. And now I'm just going around here and using the red touch up around here. Where the silly putty, I made sure the silly putty overlapped a little bit. It's easier to touch up red than it is white. So we're going here and just going ahead and just framing out those eyes the way they should be. And then we'll get back to painting those pupils for a second time here in just a second. I don't know what happened to the video footage of the painting the full rocket the first time, but it was just basically painting a metallic silver on the body and then a lighter metallic silver on the teeth, and then using panel line for the. So here I am just touching up the teeth here, like I did with the eyes. After having masked that off as well. But I use panel line for all the seams and the teeth and the seams on the rocket panels there on the body. So here, round 2 of going ahead and putting our eyes back in, and I just use a pencil to put the center of where the eyes are to make sure that they both are facing the way I want them to, and we're using black I believe it's a Pro Acryl Coal Black for this. Just going ahead and put those eyes back in for the second and this time final time. And we're just going to finish up the eyes right here and move on to the next part of the model. Looks good. Here I'm using a black brown for the leather on this model. So the reference photo I used, it's a blacky brown leather. So I'm going to start with black brown and go ahead and put all the pieces on the model that have leather, which are actually is quite a bit. And then we're going to use a transparent black Pro Acryl on top of this to darken up that brown to closer to a black, to give it that the closest to the color match I could for the reference photo I was using. So this transparent black, and I'm using a tire black with from Secret Labs here on the soles of the boots to really give it that that rubbery sole color to it. And if I can keep my head out of the way of the footage here, you can just see we're just going to go ahead around on each boot and do the where the sole meets the leather, and of course we do the bottom of the feet as well, where the model will actually show the bottom of her feet as she's riding that rocket that we painted earlier. And here I'm using that panel line I talked about earlier, also using that into the recesses of the bottom of the boot to give it that extra depth and that blackness between there. Here I'm using an Emperor's Children pink from Citadel, and on the laces here, going through and just taking my time to go ahead and get each lace painted out here. One boot the laces cross, the other boot they go straight across. They don't cross, which is interesting. Just taking my time here, and then here's the second boot where we're just go ahead and using that same pink to paint her laces in, and then going through and doing some final touch-ups to make sure that that's nice and crisp against the black leather. And I'm using some Carabao Crimson shade from Citadel to give a little extra depth to each lace. I'll do this later, the same shade on her shorts that I don't think I actually captured in the video. I captured painting them, and then here we go. They're walking right away. And here I'm using a pale yellow. So I'm using the smoke here. We're using a pale yellow into a warm yellow Pro Acryl. And then I'm using this Wild Rider red, which is kind of an orange, and some warm gray for Pro Acryl as well. And here I'm just airbrushing this, starting from where it's really white, coming right out of the rocket, to a pale yellow, to a warm yellow, orange, and so on. So I'm just using an airbrush to get a nice gradient here across the smoke. I really wanted the smoke to be very vibrant, almost like a comic book coloring, if you will, to really put some color and pop into this model. The main thing to make sure is you caught full coverage over the previous layer. You don't have any of the original white showing. It would just look really unnatural if it went from yellow to orange with white before it goes to the gray, for example. So just flipping it around here, making sure I got that full coverage. Here I'm using a sunset red, and we're going to start on the skin of Jinx. So using a sunset red first as a kind of like a base layer for all of her skin. So just hitting each part here in our face, and we're hitting the entire skin, regardless of where the zenithal already hit, because this, like I said, this is going to be the base layer for the skin before we start putting any highlights or shade colors, shadow colors in there, and in her body as well. Getting that, like I said, all even coverage across your entire skin. This color really serves as a great base or underlaying for the rest of the colors of the skin that we're going to be doing here in a moment. Transparent red here from Pro Acryl, and I'm using this on the where the shadows would be, the undersides of where the skin is. So her pose is fairly dynamic because she's kind of like like kneeling and riding on this rocket. So there's some points where the shadows aren't necessarily like from bottom up, especially on that one bent leg. Have to make sure that you hold it in the proper position where the light direction would reflect from underneath. And we're using a tan flesh from Pro Acryl here, and this is coming from the top down, putting on the actual color of her skin here. And with faces, I always kind of go head on as well, not just from top down, because the face is such a prominent feature that I want to make sure we get enough color there of her skin. And like I said, here I'm holding that leg in that position to reflect where the light source is coming from. And here, this is most of this would actually get covered up on that leg, but we go ahead and hit the part that won't be. And again, same idea here, top down, getting that skin color on, that base skin color, if you will, not base, but the first highlight skin color. And here I'm using an ivory from Pro Acryl, and we're going to go ahead and pretty much where the the highest lit spots on the skin would be. So this is definitely more of a top-down directional approach here to give that final light skin color that Jinx has. This would be a good point to do a quick pre-assembly of the model just to make sure your light sources are correct. But in this particular Jinx model, there's a lot of pieces that are a little tipsy when you're doing a pre-build, so I decided to skip that step. I'm using a violet red from a model color here from Vallejo, and this is the color I chose that best matches the gun that she holds. This big gun, Gatling gun, I suppose that would be the best description for it. And then I'm using a coal black to go ahead and paint parts of the model after I finish with the violet red, going around here and just getting this casing part of the weapon. And I could have masked all this off and airbrushed this as well, but sometimes I feel it's just quicker and to go ahead and do hand brushing on these parts than try to mask all that off. Using some more panel liner to get into the vents of the weapon. And here using violet red again for the other half of the same weapon. And I'm using silly putty to mask off her hand and arm. And then after that's done, go ahead and I'm using a gloss acrylic varnish, and it came out okay. I'm not real excited about how the actual gloss ended up being, but I just wanted the weapon to be shiny and not that matte color that Jinx skin and her outfit is, so to differentiate between the weapon and her. And here this weapon's got some rabbit ears, bunny ears on it, and going ahead and putting a warm off-white on these to set them apart. And actually these ears will end up being matte varnished later, and the rest of the weapon, of course, is that gloss that I put on. Using this coal black to go ahead and do what I did on the other half of the weapon, just getting the barrels taken care of here, and we go around, paint each barrel, and then do the inside of the barrels as well. Each one of the 3 barrels there gets the inside of it painted this coal black as well, and on the ends of them as well, it gets the black on that. And then once that's in, there'll be a gloss varnish put on this piece as well to match the other half of the gun. And here I'm doing like a wet blend to give like more of a fade inside these ears. It's kind of a strange thing to paint like more of an organic part on a weapon, but it is what it is. That's what Jinx has. So. Getting her little fluffy ears with, like I said, a wet blend there. Here using a pink from Pro Acryl. It's pretty hard to see pink. It looks like white. But this is the paint, the recesses of her stockings here. And here I'm using kind of like a wet dry brush, if you will, like an overbrush, to go ahead and get the top parts of her stockings to give that fishnet appearance. What I ended up doing is after this step here, I went back with a real thin brush with that light pink and just did touch-ups on some of the lines to get where the overbrushing went a little too aggressive into the cracks of the fishnet. And here I'm just wrapping that up. And then I'm going to go ahead and using that brown black again and hitting all the rest of the leather pieces, and using it both airbrush and regular brush, painting the gloves here, and just making sure to be very, very careful not to hit any part of the skin. At this point, there's a skin that's right a hole there in the glove that shows the top of our hand. Being careful not to paint any of that. And then going around to both pieces, or all the pieces that have leather on them that we didn't already paint leather, and getting that done. And here's on her leg, she's got a strap around her thigh here, so just getting that painted in. Being again very careful, nice slow strokes. This is a video sped up, so it's my painting isn't nearly this fast as the video would like you to think. But you know, nice slow smooth strokes is the way to go here to make sure that you don't hit the skin or any other part that's already painted. If you do, I always have another brush ready with water on it. In case I do, I can go ahead real quick and wipe the mistake off before it sets in. Here I'm using again an off-white, warm off-white, to get the bandage on her knee painted. And now I'm switched over to her body, and there is a lot of leather on her body, a bunch of straps, her necklace, arm straps, her thing that's wrapped around her waist. I do not really know what to call that. And the other half of her top here is all leather. So there's a lot of leather here to paint. Again, the secret here is go slow. Use your hands to brace yourself with your brush. Notice I've kind of get my hands braced, my fingers braced on the model to make sure I have brush control I need so I don't hit the brush over on the skin or anywhere else. I think jumping around here a little bit, you can see obviously her shorts are already painted here. I do believe I come back. I think I got something out of order here, but we'll show those pants or their shorts here in a second. In fact, here we are here with the sunset red, and going ahead and doing her pants. And went ahead and did sunset red around her pants, and then I did come back in with that Carabao Crimson Citadel wash to give it a little extra depth. I always try to use the approach of painting what I call from the inside out, meaning I try to kind of get the parts of the model that are the deepest into the recesses or kind of the hardest to reach first, and then working towards the outside. So that's why I'm doing for example, doing the shorts before I do the belt that's on the shorts, and then or doing all the bullets that are on top of the belt. Here I'm doing the other half of her top. I'm using this the light pink that I used on the stockings. It's striped right now. It's really hard to tell, but I'm painting the light parts of the vertical stripes of her top. And I'm not being super careful because as far as hitting the other stripes, because I'm going to come back over with the darker pink here, right now with the sunset red, and going ahead and painting the other half of those stripes on our top. Here's where you got to be extremely careful because, again, it's up against the skin and it's up against the lighter pink that I just painted. And I'm just using I'm using the desk, I'm using my hands, just using everything I can to keep my brush as steady as possible. You also notice I rotate the models constantly. I'm always rotating the model to give myself the best, most comfortable stroke of the brush I can, which is usually kind of pulling it down towards me. I find is the best way I can keep control of the brush. It's not always the case, but oftentimes that's how it works for me. And then we're doing the same thing we did earlier. We're using this transparent black and painting over all the leather, the black brown that we put on earlier, and this just darkens up that leather, makes it look like a black with hints of brown still to it, to match that reference photo that I had been using this entire time. And again, the key here is you don't have to go right up to the edge all the time. Kind of go down the middle of each strip of leather here and put this on. And I put this on pretty thin as well. It's already transparent, but I don't want to over darken it and just make it black leather. I do want hints of that brown there as well. So it is a little thin down here while we do this. And like I said, there's just a lot of this black-brown leather on this model, at least on her torso. So there's a lot to paint here. And again, going from that inside out, making sure we get all this done before we tackle all the bullets she has on her bandolier around her waist and around her chest as well. And then I'm using this Elven Gold again that we used earlier on the base, and I'm using that for all the gold bits that she has on her, which is her belt buckles, and going ahead and using it for the 1 bazillion bullets she has on her bandoliers. Again, just taking my time going around, being careful not to hit the leather on the belt or the pink of her jeans, or her shorts rather. And here's where you can go into the gaps and get everywhere you can see, but I'm not really worried about trying to get back in the backside of the bullet tips, if you will, because it was areas that, unless you turn the model in a very specific way and look very carefully, you'll never see it. So there are certain areas that it's not worth the risk of hitting the skin or hitting the other parts in the model to try to get to an area that is virtually invisible when the model's on display. And going around the top, doing the same thing we did on her waist, getting the bullets there, and now the buckles that hold the straps to her top, and then we get the 1 bullet on her necklace as well. So here we're switching over to her tattoos. So her tattoos are actually sculpted into the model, which is great. However, it's still, even though they're kind of more like a reference, you still have to do some quite a bit of freehand. At least the brush strokes feel very much still freehand as well. I'm using the regular blue Citadel, and I'm sorry, not Citadel, Pro Acrylic blue to do the outline. So I'm doing the outside edges of all the tattoos first, and just going ahead and following those the sculpted marks into the that were already in the model. The outside has this blue, and then the inside is filled with the light sky blue that we're going to be doing here in a moment. I did notice a few areas on the model where the outlines didn't fully close and make closed shapes, so there was a few areas more I think it was more down on her right side that I had to actually go ahead and just freehand in a few lines to close those shapes to give a full solid shape to fill with the lighter blue. So again, here you can see I am bracing myself. I'm using my pinky finger. I'm using whatever I have here to the desk, my hands, whatever I have to brace myself to make sure that I just keep those lines nice and smooth and where they should be. Switched over to that lighter blue color, and this is the color we're using to fill in the rest of the shape that the outlines created. This one here on her shoulder, I couldn't find it on the actual model, so I'm not really 100% sure what that was about, but on the reference photo, I mean, it wasn't there, but I just went ahead and painted it like the rest of the tattoo shapes that were on her. And again, just being really careful to stay within the lines. And at times where my outline might have went too far, that's great, because then I can just go ahead and use this lighter color to kind of like reshape it as it should be. And then we'll go ahead and I think right here is where I'm going back with that darker blue now and just refining and fixing up some areas. Here I'm just repainting those interior swooshes of the dark line that define the tattoo, and there it is, finished tattoo. Here I use Silly Putty to cover up her face. We're going to use this sky blue to start her hair, and this is where that zenithal really comes into play, because it already kind of gives us that pre-shadow, pre-highlight of that her hair definitely has. And just going around and just putting this the sky blue on all of her braids, as well as the top of her head where her hair is there as well. Making sure I get underneath that flyaway bit there, her bangs there, if you will. I'm using this white, purity white, I think, from Scale, and just one little drop of the sky blue that we use in the hair. And this I'm using just to spray some very top highlights on her hair. Not just her hair on her head, but the tops of her tassels up the end of her braids as well. Just this is where the light hits the hair the most, right in the very tippy tops highlights areas. There is what I'm using this for. Now I went ahead and took the silly putty off her face and using a brush to do the rest of the hair where the hair meets the skin, if you will. And you'll see here now is a big contrast between what I had done with the airbrush and what I'm painting on here that we'll take care of when we're doing some shading here in a moment. But here I'm just going ahead and using very steady brush strokes to get that hair painted right where it meets the skin without actually painting the skin of her face at all. And like I said, this is a much slower process than it looks. The video is sped up, so each of these strokes is much slower than you see. And going ahead here and getting the rest of her hair along the back of her neck painted, and underneath the bangs there as well. So here's a really good example of how contrasted it is compared to before. So now here I'm using this dark enough nightshade. It went so fast I couldn't read it. On the undersides of the hair to give it that shade and that shadow here. And this is what's blending in the airbrushed painting I did with the hand brush, and this is what's fading those two together and blending that together. So I'm using it both as a shade and a blend. And here I'm going ahead and using a dry brush now to again bring that from a darker color back into the light on the top side of the braids where the light is, and just kind of blending all that together, and then adding the highlights to her hair where I couldn't before, because of the brushing I did by hand rather than the airbrush. And this dry brushing I'm doing is, again, it's that white with just a little bit of the sky blue drop in it to give it that highlight color. And here I'm using so we're moving on to the portrait. I'm using a Drift Charger Gray to give some like eyeshadow to her, and it's super hard to see here in the video. It's super watered down, and it's just a little bit along the top side above her eyes. And then we're going to go in with a black and go ahead and paint her entire eye. And she has some pretty heavily sculpted eyelashes as well that I'll also put the same black on. So again, as I said earlier, I'm constantly rotating the model to make sure I have the best brush strokes for what I'm doing here. And like I said, not always I'm pulling down, this is actually brushing upwards, but it's whatever you feel most comfortable with your brush stroke is just rotate the model to make sure your brush strokes are, feels the most comfortable to you. And here I'm using a Magos purple on her lips, and actually I'm going across her teeth as well. I'm getting her entire mouth kind of with this color, and making sure that all of her lips, top and bottom lips, are fully painted in the corners of her mouth as well. And then I switched over to doing eyebrows next. She has very thin eyebrows, using that sky blue hair color here again on her eyebrows. Just a little short stroke, brush strokes to give it the look of hair rather than just a solid line of an eyebrow. I'm using, again, that off-white, a warm off-white color to now paint out each of her teeth. I'm doing each one separate, so it looks like she actually has a mouthful of teeth that look more realistic than just putting white all in there. I'm using the gaps between each tooth with the purple behind it to give it the teeth appearance. And go ahead and putting that same white into her eyes and leaving a little bit of black around the edges. And she has quite the intense look in her eyes, so we'll be capturing that here in a moment. Her eyes are that violet color, that we'll be using 2 shades of violet that we use on the other model, on the other parts of the model. And here's the first one. We're using that sunset red, and then we're going to be, violet red and then sunset red. So using the violet red first, and again, I'm just going ahead and marking the center of where I want her eye to be before I go ahead and kind of commit to painting the eye. So I'm going to go ahead and put the full color of her eye in here first with the darker of the purples, and slowly shaping it how I want. Again, always turning my model to get the most comfortable brush stroke I can. But here, and then on this, moving to the other eye and doing the same thing here, making sure that the way she's looking is where I want her to. I have her looking a little to her left and down because she's perched up pretty high holding her gun and riding this rocket, so it makes sense that she would be looking down at whoever's she's approaching. And just going ahead here and using that lighter of the colors now, and really starting at the very center of the darker purple I put down, and using this lighter purple to bring out that intense look, and kind of using those little brush strokes to kind of give more of that sunburst of a look in her eyes, giving her the shimmer, as they would say in the show. And going ahead and just doing some fine adjusting, and then we come in and we're adding the pupil right here in the center, and it's just dabbing dots in there, not necessarily even painting strokes. It's just adding a few dots there. And then the last part is going over the eye with some gloss to give it the gloss varnish to give it the shine that the eyes would have, and just doing some final little touch-ups there. And we move on to assembly time. I'm using a combination of this E6000 adhesive and just regular super glue. And the idea here is the E6000 is extremely strong, but it takes a long time to dry, whereas super glue obviously dries very quickly. So the idea of the super glue is to keep model in place as I'm assembling it, and then over the next 24 or 48 hours, the E6000 kicks in and makes the model very, very durable as far as the glue is concerned. I'm going ahead and sometimes I'm pre-fitting pieces first before I make a final commitment here, as you can see with the legs. And I'm also using a spray accelerant on the super glue to make sure that everything is stays put a few seconds after I attach it. And we have half of her done. And I go ahead and work on the 2 pieces of the rocket here next. Well, actually there's 3 pieces with her hand on it. And again, just going ahead and using that super glue with the accelerant. I don't use the E6000 on every single piece, but I definitely use it on the bigger pieces, such as the base, the rocket, and I believe I use it when I attach her head here right now. Again, I put the 6000 down deeper into the key, and then use the super glue around her neck. I do a few spins, checking out that everything's in place and looks correct, and I didn't miss anything. And at this point, this model is ready to be put on display. I finished Jinx about 2 days before Christmas, which gave the glue just enough time and the paint just enough time to fully set and cure. And I'm very, very happy to say that come Christmas morning, my daughter was absolutely thrilled with the model, very surprised, was not expecting it whatsoever. And seeing the emotions and the surprise and happiness, it makes just this whole project so worth it. The painting, the printing, all of it, that's really, what it's all about to me. If you stuck around to the end, I want to thank you very much for watching the entire video. This is actually my first YouTube video I've made on doing this kind of work. And again, thank you so much. And I plan on doing a lot more of these videos. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I want to keep going with 6 scale and maybe quarter scale models. So again, thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.